Good evening, Pine Cliffs. I'm your host, Galen Good, and welcome to the Pine Cliffs Observer, watching them to keep you safe. Listeners, before I get into today's broadcast, I have an important announcement to make. There won't be any real news today. There will, of course, be the weather forecast, maybe a traffic report, and so on. But there won't be any news outside of that. This is because the funerary service for Thomas, our former station manager, will be held shortly. And as is tradition in these things, our little radio station will have some live coverage of the service and a brief biography of the deceased. Also, listeners, we at the station apologize for the delay in our broadcasting. In the recent thunderstorm, our station was struck by lightning, and it's taken some time for everything to get back to normal. Now, normally I would have taken today off of work, Pine Cliffs, stayed at home and had a drink in honor of the dead, but not today, Pine Cliffs. You see, Thomas was a dear friend of mine. We first met back in 7th grade. That was when my parents moved to Pine Cliffs, and I got to go to school here. We didn't really pay any attention to each other at first, Thomas and I. We were in the same class, and that was about it. Then one day we had to do a history/drama project together for our murder, mystery, and historical fiction class. That's when we found out that we both liked history and a good mystery story. We became good friends that fall, Pine Cliffs, and stayed that way until now. So I would have preferred to stay home, Pine Cliffs. If it was anyone else, I probably would have, but Thomas was a good friend. Had been for a long time. That's why I'm standing out here in the Pine Needle Gardens, the small park next to our station, watching Big Ed of Nighthawk's Diner, along with a few of his employees, erect a small headstone in Thomas's memory. Now I'm looking at the piece of paper that the owner of our station, Amelia Maller, has handed me in preparation for the service. It would appear, Pine Cliffs, that Thomas did not leave any family behind. No wife, no significant other, no children. No one. Well, not no one, Pine Cliffs. At the very least, he left a good friend behind. God, we went through so much together. I remember that right in the middle of our freshman year, Thomas managed to get himself put into one of those detention camps that Mr. Eden had set up to convert dissidents into more reasonable citizens. Now, Thomas had gone into one of those camps a reasonably happy person. A bit odd, sure, but happy. He was anything but when he was finally released at the end of freshman year. He was quiet when he got out. He always seemed scared, angry. And I tried to find out why, Pine Cliffs. Oh, I tried. At one point, we even got into a fight over it. He was convinced that I'd never understand what happened in there, and I disagreed. He reasserted his point, with his fists, and I responded in kind. We fought for at least an hour. Easily. Turned out that we were both pretty stubborn, and that Thomas needed to work out some of his newly acquired emotional issues with his fists. He calmed down considerably after the fight. Even told me a bit of what happened in the camp. Before he was allowed to leave, Thomas had to sign a contract with Mr. Eden. Presumably, it was the usual, you can have my soul, you leave me alone unless I deserve it, and I get a few extra things that I want kind of deal. The problem with this is, like I said before, Thomas is stubborn, set in his ways, bound to do what is right. God, they had to have broke him to sign it. He said that they showed him things. He never said what. Even when he was drunk, the closest thing to an answer I could get out of him was a mumbled, "Channel ether." After the fight, Thomas was better. Not the same, of course. No one could ever be the same after what they put him through. But better. What's that? Sorry, listeners, Els is waving at me. Oh, that's right. Here is this week's weather forecast. Sunday will be cloudy, with a 50% chance of rain. Temperatures are expected to reach the low 70s, with a 5-mile-per-hour breeze coming out of the north. Monday will be a cold, bitter day, as it always is. Temperatures are expected to reach roughly 25 degrees below zero. Make sure to wear plenty of layers, and try to keep your pipes from bursting, Pine Cliffs. Tuesday through Friday, who cares? We'll all be working inside anyways. Saturday will be cloudy, with a 75% chance of rain, with temperatures in the high 60s. Well, listeners, back to Thomas. After high school, Thomas got a job working at this very station. When I'd ask him about it, he'd insist that it was a temporary job, that he'd be a radio host for a bit and then go off to college somewhere. But that never happened. Thomas got moved up to management. I went and got licensed as a private investigator. Got to work with the sheriff's office, and with current sheriff Isaac Maller. Got Thomas that I would meet at the bar a few blocks down from the station. The serious note. Have some drinks, and talk about work. He'd tell me about life at the station, sorting through ad contracts, management training, that sort of thing. And I'd tell him what I could about whatever case we were working on down at the sheriff's office. Those were good times, Pine Cliffs. Good times. He had first pick of the case information that I could legally provide, and if I needed to have some word spread or some old transcripts looked at, he'd get it done for me. We had each other's backs. He even had mine when He had my back at the lowest points in my life. Picked me up, got me back on my feet. Hell, he gave me a job. This job. Thomas was a good man. What's that? Listeners, I'm seeing people on the other side of the park, and they all seem to be coming this way. While I greet them, here's a word from today's sponsor. How do you feel, Pine Cliffs? Are you weighed down by a sadness, dragging you down over the course of the day? Well then, come on down to Nighthawk's Diner. Yeah, it's greasy, but it'll stop the pain. Listeners, I don't know what to say. I don't think there's anyone home right now. I saw a few people on the edge of the park and they started walking over here. I was surprised. No one but the station employees, Big Ed and his workers had shown up for Thomas's service. I was about to say hello when they ran up to me and apologized for being late. Offered everyone here their condolences. And more people started showing up. Started sharing their stories in Pine Cliffs. I'm pretty sure we're all here. All of us. And I'm hearing things about Thomas that I didn't even know about him. It would be easier to list the things he didn't do. Apparently in his free time he would go and help out at our local schools, go work at the Soup's Kitchen, do deliveries for our Meals on Wheels program. The list goes on and on. And to think that he'd take time out of all of that, out of his day to go and sit at a bar and talk to a friend. To me. Listeners, if any of you are there to listen, I have a correction to make. Earlier, I said that Thomas did not leave any family behind. I would like to correct this statement, Pine Cliffs. Thomas left behind a family. He is survived by all of us, those that are here and those unable to attend. Someone that did everything that he did for all of us, for me. I can only speak for myself, Pine Cliffs. But he was family, at least to me. And to Thomas, if any part of you is out there, if on this new part of your journey you can hear my voice, know this. You're sorely missed. And you were a good man. A better one than me, anyways. Up next on our airwaves, the sound of rain, occasionally broken by the roar of thunder. This is Galen Good, signing off. Until next time, Pine Cliffs. Until next time. This has been Pine Cliffs Radio, written and narrated by myself, Cuhullin96. A quick shout out to Raener Lewington, who got me to start making this little podcast. If you would like to complain about this show, go talk to him. If you like the show, please like, favorite, comment, and subscribe. And by the way, thanks for listening.